Hey, welcome to Walking the Path. Okay, you've probably heard the phrase, your thoughts are shaping your reality. But what if I told you that wasn't just spiritual wisdom or woo-woo, but that's actually quantum physics? So today is the first talk in a series on science and spirituality. And you're actually going to be diving into the quantum field and how our thoughts, our awareness is not just observing reality, but that we're actually shaping it. So welcome to the first talk in the series, Science and Spirit. We're going to talk about some cutting edge science as I understand it, which, I'm not a scientist, but, and kind of talk about how spiritual truth and quantum physics are kind of saying the same things. I want to be really clear. This is not quantum woo-woo. This is not misusing quantum science to prove spirituality. It's simply what I'm interested in is how quantum physics seems to be saying the same thing that spirituality has been saying for years. It seems like they're pointing in the same direction. I'm not using one to prove or disprove the other, but just exploring interesting parallels. That's my intention. Okay, so that's the talk. Now, I happen to be at Rythmia, and Rythmia is a life advancement center. I love the name Life Advancement because it's really about advancing our lives, moving our lives forward. And that happens every week here. I've had the honor to be here for the last 8 years, and it's been incredible. So I am sharing about Rythmia because this talk is under the auspices of Rythmia Life Advancement Center. And if you want to come down and see what all the magic, all the miracles are about, come down and see us. Now, let's get into our talk. So, all right, I got really interested in quantum physics. Although I'm not a mathematician, I don't understand anything about the math that got us to E equals MC squared. But here's what I do know about E equals MC squared. I know that E is energy and M is matter or mass, and they're on opposite sides of an equal sign. That much I know, and that much pretty much is what's so interesting to me, that energy slowed down becomes matter, and matter sped up becomes energy. This is the basis and beginning of like where quantum physics, I think, takes off from Einstein's special theory of relativity. And I think what he was calling it was spooky action at a distance. Something crazy is happening out there. We can't really explain it because the natural laws or the laws of classical physics, don't apply to the subatomic world. And so classic physics is about, particles and matter, and everything is solid, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and all those things, right? Gravity. Quantum physics is like everything is energy. E equals MC squared. Everything is energy. Matter is energy just slowed down. Everything is energy, and everything's vibrating in a field of potential and possibility. This is what I understand the quantum field to be. That the quantum field is a sea of possibilities, that nothing exists in a fixed form until it's observed. This is the foundational piece, I think, that's so interesting, that nothing exists in a fixed form until it's observed. So spirituality, spiritually, this unified field, what we're talking about in quantum physics is a unified field, to me is what the spiritual sages from all the ages have been talking about as the mind of God, the source, oneness, the Akashic records, the Akashic field. All of these are spiritual ways that the sages and wise men from the ages have been talking about what quantum physics is calling the unified field, a dimension of all that is and all that could be. And isn't that what, at the very basis, what the ancient understanding of God is? Now, again, I'm not using quantum physics to prove one or the other. I'm just talking about parallels. So in the Bible, Moses goes up to the burning bush, and this is the Hebrew Bible, right? Moses goes up to the burning bush, and he says, go tell him to set my people free. And Moses says, okay, well, who should I tell him sent me? And what the King James Version has God say is, tell him I am that I am. Okay, does that sound a little bit like Popeye? I am that I am. Tell them I am that I am. So, which is beautiful, but Aramaic, which was the language of Yeshua, Hebrew was spoken in the Bible, in the temples, but Aramaic was the language of the streets. Aramaic, as my teacher, Reverend Joanne Coleman, used to say, Aramaic was like the Ebonics of the Middle East in the time of Yeshua. So in Aramaic, the phrase isn't I am that I am. The phrase translated from the original Aramaic is I am what is required. But in Aramaic and in these ancient, even in Hebrew, they have a different tense. They have a tense that encompasses past, present, and future. We don't have a tense in the English language that encompasses past, present, and future. There's past, there's present, and there's future tenses. But in the ancient language, there's a tense that means all of it, past, present, and future. And so the literal translation is tell them I am what is required. And it would literally be saying, I am, in English, it would say, I am what the past requires, I'm what the present requires, and I'm what the future requires. I am all that is required. This is really interesting when we look at the actual literal translation from the Aramaic of this passage in the Hebrew Bible, or what the Christians call the Old Testament. So I am all that is required. What is all that is required? Infinite potential and infinite possibility. All potentials, all possibilities are what is required. This is the nature and name of God from a spiritual perspective. So the quantum field is not just somewhere far away. It's the space that we're in right now. And this is what, Eckhart Tolle, the power of now. There's the eternal now. Okay, what's the eternal now? Everything's happening. There was that movie, Everything, All the Time, All at Once, Everywhere, or whatever the name of the title was, right? But it's saying like it's all happening now. There really is no past or future. There's just the eternal now, where everything is existing in a state of possibility, and we're choosing our possibilities. This actually goes back to another biblical phrase. It is done to you as you believe. This is the process of quantum selection, I'm going to say. So what is this process of selection with quantum physics? The observer effect, right? Because the principle is that we're selecting right now, we're selecting possibilities from a field of infinite potential and possibility, that nothing is fixed until it's observed. This is the principle. So how do we get to that observer? The observer effect is really interesting. This is how awareness shapes reality. And if you've heard of the double slit experiment, which was a foundational piece of quantum physics, where just in a really simple way, and again, I don't understand the math or the science behind it, but from my understanding of reading lay texts about this, is that this experiment showed that light, that these photons are, which are subatomic particles, they wanted to see how they behaved. And they were like shooting them out of a gun, let's say, and watching how they behaved. And they behaved as waves, like a light wave, right? So light or particles behave like waves of potential until they're observed. So when they're observed, they collapse into a single measurable outcome. And this looked like, in this double slit experiment, was they were shooting these subatomic particles through these double slits and watching like an array. What was the pattern that they made on a surface behind the double slit? Then they were like, well, we want to see how many of these particles make it through. So they created a way to measure the number of particles that were going through. In that measuring device was an observation. And they noticed that as soon as they started measuring, the particle, the light wave became a particle. And the pattern display was different, had a different alternative pattern display. So in the act of observation, a wave is like potential. So particles behave like waves of potential until they're observed. And once they're observed, they collapse into a single form. The act of observation creates form. This parallels another spiritual truth, that Consciousness precedes form, or form follows consciousness. And that's also in the Bible. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh. In the beginning, there was the Word. There, in the beginning, let's say the Word, if I speak a word, it's a sound, it's a vibration, it's a wave. And the Word was with God in the field of infinite potential and infinite possibility. Quantum field, mind of God, okay. And the Word became flesh. Einstein's special theory of relativity, energy became matter. Whoa, okay. Simple-minded, all you quantum physicists out there might be going, that guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Send me a text. Let me know. Send me a direct message. Because I think, again, I'm not using one to prove the other, but really interesting parallels. In my mind, I like it. Okay, so the act of observation creates form. Our attention isn't passive, it's creative. I'm not just witnessing life, but I'm collapsing it into being. What I think about, I bring about. It is done to us as we believe. And so here, the implication from a spiritual level is that awareness isn't a side effect of being human, but it is the instrument of creation. As within, so without. This validates this deep spiritual truth. As within, so without. So how about a quick reflection for all you watching? I'm loving the comments. Thank you very much. But here's a quick reflection. Where has your attention been this week? What is it that you've been energizing this week? Have you been energizing illness, aging, lack, limitation? Have you been energizing healing, infinite possibility, infinite potential? This is how important it is to bring our awareness to our thoughts and what we're thinking. So last night I was sitting with my feet up in my chair, listening to an audiobook. Before bed, I was just kind of sitting there relaxing. I didn't want to do any screen time, but I didn't want to do any more reading. So I'm listening to this audiobook and I'm looking at my feet, my bare feet, and I'm thinking, the big toe kind of goes in and there's this bunion on the side. And I'm like, my feet are ugly. Look at that ugly, that thing. And I wonder if I can, pull it this way to correct it. And then I realized, what am I quantum selecting? This negative thinking about my feet, when it's like, hey, I stopped for a minute and I was like, you know what? These feet, they've taken a pounding. I run, I jog, I walk, I hike, I do all this stuff. They carry me, man. And if there's, you think, you don't think about your feet until you break your pinky toe. And then you're like, whoa, every part of my foot is really important because now I can't walk because my pinky's toe is broken, you're like, wow, it's really important. I started really appreciating my feet. What are we selecting in life? Let's be really aware of our thoughts. So where has your attention been this week? What have you been placing your attention on? And what is it that you want to keep energizing? All right. So if we're always selecting, thank you, Shauna. If we're always selecting, our intention is like a tuning fork. I love this example because Reverend Michael talks about being a tuning fork, right? And what we focus on, we feed. What are we feeding? Where I place my attention, where my attention goes, my energy flows. When I place my attention on something, I collapse possibility into form. So my intention is the signal that I'm sending into the field. And the field responds to frequency. Emotion is frequency. We can sum this up in the spiritual truth that says the universe doesn't hear us. God doesn't hear you. God does not hear me. The universe, God, divine presence feels us. It's a feeling, vibrating, throbbing, living, emotional, or living universe. So this field, what quantum physics calls the field of infinite potential and infinite possibility, we might call the mind of God. We might call the universe this responsive, energetic field, creative energy that exists around us, and it responds to the frequency of what I'm putting in. There's another spiritual principle about the universe being like a mirror. Right, the universe mirrors us, and it doesn't. I don't have to beg the mirror to reflect an image back at me. When I stand in front of the mirror, the image that I get back is exactly what I put in, and it happens automatically. That's the same thing with the creative medium energy that's all around us, that it's just reflecting back the energy. It mirrors the energy that I'm putting out. What I'm putting out, I'm getting back. So fear selects our future. Love selects another future. Fear selects one future. Love selects another future. Wayne Dyer has a beautiful saying: happy people live in a happy world. Hostile people live in a hostile world. Same world. What are you selecting? What am I selecting? What are we selecting? Gratitude tunes us into miracles. So here's a life story that I want to share with you about how this happened. So I think I've shared it before, but it was a long time ago, but it's a true story. I had a friend who was down here visiting, and he was like, man, I love being in Costa Rica. You know, I live close to the beach. I don't live on the beach, but it's a 15-minute walk, you know, through a dirt jungle road. Pretty cool. He goes, I love being down there. I feel so good. And I have a dog. And he said, if you ever need to go out of town and need someone to watch your dog, I'd be happy to come down and watch your dog. Just being here would be so cool. And I was like, great. Sometime later, I couldn't find someone to watch my dog, Paco, and I was going out of town for a week. So I called my friend up and I said, hey, you know that offer you made? I want to take you up on it. And he goes, oh, that's cool. Let me see if I'm available. He checked the dates. He goes, I'm available. I was like, awesome. He goes, okay, so the way this is going to work for me is if you pay for my plane ticket and you pay for all my expenses while I'm there. And I was like, okay, that's not what I understood in the beginning. It's not what I heard, but okay. I said, that's going to be a really expensive dog watcher, you know, thing to bring you down. And I said, hey, we both agree and believe in the principle that there's nothing too big for spirit, that spirit has more ways than there are stars in the sky to deliver us our good, more ways than there are drops of water in the ocean, more ways than there are grains of sand on the beach, more than what we're saying there is there are so many possibilities and potentialities that exist for you to come down other than me paying for your ticket. Do you agree with that? He said, yes. Okay, great. We touched and agreed, or on the phone agreed. And I kind of lived in that vibration, like, okay, I'm going to leave it. Spirit has more ways to deliver my good than there are stars in the sky. A couple days later. And when we hung up the phone, he said, well, maybe you'll get some more clients and you can afford to pay for my ticket. And I was like, well, that's one possibility. So a couple days later, he calls me. He said, oh my God, is it okay if I bring someone with me when I come down? And I said, sure. Who? What is it? He goes, well, I was at this yoga class and I was telling this friend of mine that I wanted to go to Costa Rica. I had this opportunity to go to Costa Rica and watch your dog, but I didn't have the money to pay for the ticket. And my friend said, oh my God, I've been wanting to go to Costa Rica. In fact, I was looking at vacations there, and the hotels are kind of expensive. How much is your ticket? You know, what do you need for your ticket and your expenses? And he told her, and she goes, well, that's about half of what the hotel would cost me for a week if I went down there. So if I could go with you and stay at your friend's place with you, I'll pay for your ticket, because that would be half the cost of what I would pay for a hotel. And so he got to come down. I got him to watch my dog, and they got to stay at my place 15 minutes from the beach, and they had a great time. So the field responds to our frequency. If I would have said, okay, there's only one way that he's coming down, I got to pay for that ticket. How am I going to make the money? I got to make the money. And I was like, I'm going to step into the possibility that there are more ways that I can't even imagine. There's a whole field of what I don't even know. I don't know. I would have never been able to even select the possibility that his friend wanted to come to Costa Rica and would be willing to pay for the ticket. But when we stay open and leave room with a realization that there's a field of infinite potential and possibility, I'm selecting the possibility of him coming down and it happening with ease and grace. And I'm deselecting the possibility that I'm paying for the ticket. But there's a whole bunch of other possibilities I'm selecting. I don't know what they are. I can't even imagine what they are, but I know there's a way. So here's again where spirituality and quantum physics kind of meet together. Well, how are we doing on time? I think wow. Okay, you know what? Let's get moving. So 3 practical tools for aligning with the field of infinite potential and infinite possibilities. We've talked about this theoretical idea that we're selecting from a field of potential and collapsing something into a particular experience. Consciousness, awareness precedes form. Form follows consciousness. So 3 tools that are simple and actionable and grounded in both science and spirit. So mindfulness. I have a whole new appreciation of mindfulness now that I'm thinking about the fact that I'm selecting things. I'm selecting potentials and possibilities from my life. So I'm going to start being more aware of what I'm selecting. So now when I'm eating, I'm praying over my food and I'm saying, I used to just give thanks for my food and think about the people that all the hands that it had to go through before it got to me. But now I'm actually saying this food has life force in it. It's meeting my life force and it's healing every cell of my body. It's feeding me everything that I need. I'm perfect assimilation of this food, perfect circulation of all the nutrients that I need, and perfect elimination of anything that's no longer necessary. Now I'm selecting perfect assimilation, perfect circulation, perfect elimination, right? So now that mindfulness, it slows down thought, it sharpens attention, and like just to pause, what am I tuning into right now? What am I tuning into right now? There was a time where I used to set alarms on my phone randomly throughout the day, 4 or 5 alarms, and whenever the alarm would go off, I'd stop, and it would just be a moment to stop and say, what am I tuning into? You could do that with anything. Every time you see the color red, every time you hear a car horn, every time you see a bird, every time you hear a chime, make that a practice. Make it a playful practice. So today, every time I hear a chime, I'm going to stop and say, what am I tuning into? Or you can set random alarms on your phone. And every time the alarm goes off, what am I tuning into? Check your thoughts. So the next piece is affirmative prayer and mantra, right? Which is directing your frequency. So this sets the vibration of the observer. And so you speak your mantra or prayer, not to ask, but to align. I'm choosing peace right now. I'm not, please give me peace, bring me peace. It's no, in this moment, I recognize that God is peace and that I'm one with God. So I know that all the peace that there is mine right now. Ernest Holmes says, if you want to, you can't think thoughts of fear and hope for peace. You've got to think thoughts of peace. So we're starting to select the probability, the possibility that we want to select. So affirmative prayer and mantra is another way that you can direct this frequency. And finally, gratitude. Gratitude is the most coherent signal we can send out. Because when we're really grateful, and not just going like, I'm grateful for my hands, I'm grateful for my car, I'm grateful for my dog, I'm grateful that I have food to eat, right? You can be grateful for all those things, but when you're saying them, are you feeling it? So I've also been checking myself now with that, like being really conscious of my gratitude statements. I have to feel them. I really want to feel grateful for my dog. I am grateful for Paco. He's such a good boy. So feel grateful for something before it happens is another way of selecting this, being coherent with the whole field. So these aren't just feel-good rituals. They're actual technologies of consciousness. So we have mindfulness, mantra or affirmative prayer, and then gratitude. So selecting, feeling grateful for something before it happens, feeling grateful for something that has happened. I give thanks for this that happened, and I'm grateful for all the blessings yet to come. I'm so grateful that everything always works out for me. I'm so grateful that I'm healthy and whole and vibrant. I'm so grateful that I'm so prosperous I need never worry again. I'm grateful. Now feel that. Now I'm selecting something for the future. But I can also be, I'm so grateful for my years at Rythmia and all the wonderful people that I get to meet. And I'm so grateful for my dog Paco. And I'm grateful to live in a place, man, I'm grateful to live in a place where there's monkeys and fireflies and ocelots and scarlet macaws and mop birds and caracara birds and little field mice and funny skunks with little white dots that are cute. And oh man, I'm grateful. Okay, so that's in closing. You're not a bystander in life. That we are sacred observers, and our awareness is holy, and our intuition is a tuning fork, and every breath, every thought, every act is a creative act. So remember, I am the observer. I am the creator, and I collapse love into form with every breath. And so it is. Grateful, grateful, great. Thank you all so much. I'm sending you much love, many blessings, peace, and richest blessings. I'm going to cut out.